Hello, good morning, everyone. This is bright and early for me because we have a special guest out of Canada today. I cannot wait to introduce you to her. But this is another episode of Ace Private Practice with Experts. I'm Natasha Ace, your host, and today we are talking about wanting to know, do you believe your people are assets or are they human resources? So we have Charlene Norman, who's the founder and chief inventive. Oh my gosh, I'm all tongue-tied. I'll be honest, my coffee cup is still full, still warm here. I have not had an opportunity to have a sip yet. You might see me drinking some of this as we're going through. But let me tell you, Charlene has the most amazing story in terms of leading teams and talking about leadership, which is why we brought her on. She has 30 years of hands-on experience playing Grant, and I'm going to ask you to explain this word to me, Charlene, when I bring you on board. Actually, let's bring you up here, Charlene. I was putting that in there when I saw the email come through, and I'm wondering. I was like, I heard you say this when we were doing our first interview when we were chatting about whether or not to bring you on board, Grand Poobah, and this is a reference to
being the main person who's in charge of everything. People call it all kinds of names. You could be an executive director, a director. It depends on your country. Vice president, CEO, whatever. And I just said, oh, it's just the Grand Poobah. It's one of the
all of it. All of it. I love it. I'm gonna be using that because I really loved it. So you've worked with companies from 10 million to 1 billion, and you've got a 360-degree view of businesses. And I absolutely love that. And then you went on to say, honest, humble, authentic, sometimes wickedly funny. You're passionate about profitability, obsessed with people and processes. And I absolutely love that. I can't wait. Can you tell us a little bit about who you are, what you've done, and why you've done it?
So I'm just this little chick from a small town in Canada. Why did I do it? I left the small town because it was less than 10,000 people, and I said, oh, well, I can make my mark in the big city. So I moved to Toronto, and I'm sure everyone's heard of Toronto. And I wanted to be the best. I didn't want to be the best to compete against everyone else. I had inside of me that said, I can be the best. And I had a pretty amazing, solid career that took me all around the world. And if you want to know the technical bits, it's really boring. I led 60 acquisitions, 10 dispositions, 35 profit improvements, 5 culture changes, and even 1 bankruptcy. And I gave up counting after 15 the number of men who I had made millionaires. And about 10 years ago, I said, I've done enough helping other people. It's time I make some money too. So that's what brings me to the screen today. I try very hard not to be the corporate person that I used to be. I try very hard to be as human as possible. I'm not hung up on all these trappings.
I love it. I love it. Now, our topic today is going to be, do you believe your people are assets or human resources? And I absolutely love that. But what I'd like to do before we get started into asking the questions around this topic, I want to ask you some rapid fire questions, if you don't mind.
Okay.
All right. I'm wondering, is there a book that you're reading or listening to at the moment?
I have probably about 6 books that I listen to, and I haven't finished any of them yet. I pick them every single day. But the one book that I'm reading is called Becoming What You Really Want to Be. And it's written by a doctor here in Canada, Dr. Jim Murray. And I bought it to help my clients who feel they're not worthy enough, they're not enough. And I also bought it to say, okay, woman, what's the next thing that you want to pay attention to?
Yeah, beautiful. I love that. There's a lot of imposter syndrome that we feel as women, I think, isn't it? Or just as business owners in and of ourselves.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I love that. I'll add it to the red list. Let me ask you now, this is something that I can always, when I ask this question, my guests kind of go like this. if you were to fall safely from a cliff, would you want to fall face forward or your back to the ground?
Face forward.
No
Face forward.
hesitation.
No hesitation. Just let me plop. And the reason I say that is every time I fall on my back,
Yeah.
I'm out for 6 weeks. Listen, we'll go on a face. It doesn't matter.
That's awesome. All right. Control. Have face forward. We don't want you out for 6 weeks.
Okay.
Have you ever been skydiving?
Hell no. I don't like heights. No.
So you're not falling from a cliff or skydiving if you
No,
can help.
help it.
All right, and last, most importantly, and I think I know this answer, cat person or dog person?
Dog.
Yes.
100%. I've had both, but my preference is a dog.
Yay! Beautiful. All right, let's start talking here. So you've got an interesting, and I'm going to pull up my questions here. We're talking today about assets or human resources and how people are, how owners, principal psychologists, or anyone that's managers, really, and how they're treating their people. And this is really more of a leadership kind of conversation that we're having today. We want to really understand, you know, how do we work together with that hierarchy without having to have that divide. So tell us, why do you love the topic about people?
Well, the really, really simple answer is it is the absolute most important piece of any business, bar none. And I say that because I have personally led teams of 2 up to 500 across the world. And when we go to school, and I know everyone in your audience is incredibly well educated, we always learn how to be the best technical person. So whatever we decided to learn, whether we're a doctor, a lawyer, an accountant, a dentist, a psychologist, we learn how to be the best that we can be in that field. And then we also learn it's all about me and how I'm going to improve the world or improve the lives of the clients. And there's 2 things that we're never taught. And I know of one school right now, and it's in the US, that is introducing a bit of this, but we are never taught how to lead people. The second thing is we're never taught how to be business people. And it's almost like the universities and the colleges have said, well, just go learn it as you go along, which is the absolute worst way to pick up any kind of decent skill. And to get the best out of others, for me, and the way I see the world, is the absolute rock solid way that any of us can be better business people. And it's a skill that's not taught. And today what I see in the world is people are saying, oh my God, I can't find good help. There's no good help out there. There's a skill shortage. Well, hell, in my day, there were lots of people, but today there's nobody. Or their attitude sucks. They want all this money, and I'm not prepared to do it. What the hell do they think? And I got to tell you, that attitude, those comments, what I've seen are across every single industry, bar none. And I look at it and I say, well, there is no problem in the marketplace, people. The problem is you don't know how to manage the process to give you what you want. And I was one of the lucky ones. I worked with good people and crap people. And with the good people, there were some amazing policies and procedures that were not compliance driven, but they were designed to help you get to where you wanted. And I consider myself blessed for working with those people and to be able to transfer all that knowledge to so many of my clients and to share with you today. you don't have to muddle your way around. And many of the role models that we have available to us, they are not role models. They are not going to get you ahead. And I know that people fundamentally best foundation in any business, period. They absolutely deserve to be treated in a different way, because there's no right answer, there's no wrong answer, but I promise you there's a better answer.
Mm. So tell us, have you always been a good people person?
Well, no. My education was just like everyone else. First, I learned how to be an accountant. Okay, so we can do all that stuff, but that really wasn't my thing. Then I learned about marketing, and okay, yeah, that's not my thing. Then I learned about operations and whatever else. When I was 26, I became a manager. That meant, honestly, the vice president of HR came down to me and said, "Congratulations, woman, don't screw up." Now, that's a pretty empowering message, isn't it, for a young manager? And I had, I think at that time, 7 people who all made way more money than I did. And I really held on to this thing of, well, don't screw up. So at 26, I made sure that every single deadline was met, every single request was met. My team worked their buns off to make sure that we were the best thing possible. Unfortunately, about 3 months in, my team members said, "Hey, Shar, we've got to have a meeting at 7 o'clock tonight. Your office." Okay, so they all come into my office. And they start off with, "You know what, Shar? You're a really nice person. You got a great personality. You're lots of fun. But as a manager, I got to tell you, you're crap, you're shit, and we don't want to work for you." That kind of threw me off a bit. And I was in corporate, so I kept my face completely as blank as possible. And I listened to all their suggestions. And they were simple suggestions. And they were right. So I thanked them. When they were finished, I thanked them. And I said, "Well, I appreciate all the feedback. I will think about it." And then I started my favorite habit for whenever things in my life got screwed up, in my work life got screwed up. I went home, I poured myself a glass of wine. I looked at it and I said, "So, Ollie, this is a fine mess you've gotten yourself into. How are you going to get out of it?" Honest to God, I was not good at all. So fast forward 24 years. It was my last day on the job. I went around to everybody in my organization where English was not a first language, and I shook everybody's hand. And I said whatever pleasantries I said. 125 people who didn't speak English too well, 120 of them cried on my shoulder and said, "Shar, you've always had our back. We've never had such a good time as what we've had now. Thank you. It's never going to be the same."
Yeah.
It took 24 years of a thankless. No one ever told me I was good. No one ever told me that I had actually made it, because being a good people person, it's a really thankless job. Nobody tells you. You just do what's in your heart. Imagine going through for 24 years and not getting one thank you, but all of a sudden all these people going, "Oh my God."
Yeah.
And it was really redeeming for me.
Yeah, I can imagine. I want to ask you to kind of go into that, but and we're going to get to that. I want to know the nitty gritty of what was happening in 24 years, and are there secrets? I'm sure there are, like, little things that we need to hear in order to make it better, to be better leaders. Can you tell me though, why are people skills so important?
Well, Australia has a health crisis, right? There's a constant complaints about the health costs are rising. There's the deductibles or what's accepted and is covered. That the list is shrinking. The stress on the health workers is going through the roof because everyone is sick. So let me, and what Australia is going through is exactly what Canada is going through, what every single country in the world is going through.
Mm.
So let me share with you something that is not talked about regularly. In the medical profession, somewhere between 70 and 80% of all illnesses are chronic. They're classified as chronic. And I know your audience knows that chronic is long term to get sick, and then a really long time to get better, if at all. And when I'm talking chronic, I'm talking heart attacks and strokes and cancer and obesity and diabetes and even oral health. I'm not going to address mental health because mental health has just kind of come up in the last couple of years. And my statistics of somewhere between 70 and 80, those are 2 years old. They could be higher today. But none of these conditions they're not human. They're not, let me change my words. These conditions all come from one thing only: stress. And stress is a man-made production. And when I say that stress is a man-made production, I also want to add that that production started and seems to end in the workplace. Most of us work 8 to 12 hours a day, 5 days out of 7 days, for somewhere between 48 to 50 hours a week for, wait for it, somewhere between 30 and 40 years. And in that time of all that work and spending the majority of your time, this is what happens. We humans will do 10 things in a day. 9 things will be brilliant. 1, not so much. We get dumped on for that 1 not so much, but we don't get any feedback, positive or neutral, about the 9 things that we did brilliantly. In addition, we're all experts within that one field that we've studied and done and whatever. And in our own areas, we can see ways to improve. When many of us come forward with ideas to say, hey, why don't we try this? Why don't we try that? What happens? 9 times out of 10, 10% is good, but 9 times out of 10, we're told to shut up. We're told not to rock the boat. We're told to stay in our own lane. We're told it's not part of our job. So if you have ideas to improve and you're told, forget about it, what's going to happen? You're going to keep it all bottled down. You're not going to be paying attention. Most of us, to one degree or another, have gone through bouts in our workplace for ageism, for sexism, for racism, for bullies. That's really all bad behavior. And every one of us can say, this sucks. Wow, doing that every day for up to 30 to 40 years, what happens? You have all that stuff fester. That stress then starts to manifest in other ways. And that's why we get so many of these chronic illnesses. So when I look at this, I say, wow, the major stresses that we're not allowed to speak our mind, we're not allowed to contribute, we're not given credit, we're given way less money. Our value is we're not given incentives, and we're not allowed to participate in any discussions. Why the hell do I want to work? Why do I have a big chip on my shoulder? And what an awful existence we have created in our workplaces for our employees. But here's the key. Humans were not meant for stress. Humans were meant for joy and happiness and respect and giving back. And for far too long, businesses have forgotten that's the prime function of a human. Human is not to be stressed. So why do I say that people management, that people are so important? Because it's the easiest way to reduce our medical costs. It's the easiest way to increase man's longevity. And if anyone has any particular interest in making the world better right now,
Mhm.
when you treat your employees the better way,
Mhm.
you can take a big slice, if not an entire removal of ageism, sexism, racism. You
Mhm.
can make the world a better place.
Mhm. Now, I know I've got a question. This is not something we spoke about, but in what you're bringing up, I actually have been reflecting as you're talking, and I'm thinking some people feel as though they're good leaders, but are missing the mark. Like I'm assuming when you were 26, and I love the story, and I'm so glad you told it. I was hoping you would tell that story. But when you were 26 and your people, came to you and said, "We need to have a meeting." I mean, you thought you were doing a great job. You thought you were doing the
Again,
right thing. You thought you were being an amazing leader. What are some of those common mistakes that people make in terms of being a good leader?
not respecting the person's personal life. I always organize stuff. I said, well, work the weekend. Just work the weekend. Work until 10 o'clock. Just do it. We got to get the job done. So that was number one. I had no respect for their personal lives and their time outside the 9 to 5 or 9 to 12 or whatever it was. Second thing, when I gave out assignments and I said, okay, we need this done, I did not allow them to do it themselves. I was constantly on their backside saying, is it done yet? Is it done yet? Oh, that's wrong. No, you got to do it this way. No, that is like so totally wrong.
Yeah.
So that was another one that I did wrong. They objected to that. The third thing was they objected to, I only ever gave them crap. I never thanked them. Oh my God. I never thanked them for saving my bacon for stuff I wanted done that was outside.
Yeah.
I never congratulated them or had a celebration for when they exceeded all expectations. I had the same. Oh hell, that's what I paid you for. That's why I hired you. You're doing that. I don't have to do it. Well, that's not right. And the other thing that I did was because they made more money than me. I couldn't express that one, right? And I take that the whole money thing, whether you're a business owner or they just make more money than you, it doesn't really matter. The money thing for me was a big deal. As I know it is for many business owners, like, I'm not giving you that. I can't afford that, blah, 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 blah. I had to change my mindset and say, this is not about money. This is about results. Can we get the results that we want with what's going on? And one of the other things that I did was I took what I learned in school, so I made everything about me. And that is the worst thing anyone can do. And it's one of the takeaway points I'll leave you with when we sign off. You have to flip your me into we. You have to pay attention to the other person. They're not a robot. They're not a wooden thing with no feelings. They're a real human being. And it's up to us, even if we're uncomfortable, it's up to us to bring the best out of them. And what my people taught me initially, and I continue, if I'm going to get best out of them, I have to be the best that I can be. And so I always took, and I don't know where this came from because I always hated criticism when I was younger, but I always took their answers to me, their discussion and their honesty and their truthfulness. I always took that as a gift. And I thought it took a hell of a lot of guts to stand up to me and tell me that I will take the guts and do the hard work so that I am worthy.
Yeah. So tell me then, after you did all of that, what sort of results did you see? What were you able to accomplish after that?
Everything. Over time, and it doesn't happen overnight, but over time, there's a cereal commercial. I think it's Life cereal, and so there's two kids talking, and the kids don't want to have the cereal, so
I
they
think
say,
we've
give it to Mikey.
frozen.
Let Mikey try the
Oh, we did.
commercial. So I developed a reputation as Mikey. If there was a hard problem that any company had, I was the girl who was going to fix it. And what happened was my results. I was I took a company's net income before taxes from 8% to 35% in 3 years. That's a hell of a lot, in 8% to double digits so quickly. You could list any KPI that any of us ever have to do. I blasted through them totally. In your business, there's probably some people, some customers who don't want to pay their bills. So there's bad debt thing. My bad debts were zero. We figured out how to get everybody to pay happily. One thing in our business was scheduling was always a tricky thing. And then the orders that got canceled or they got deferred or whatever. We figured out, wasn't me, we figured out together how to have everything still operating, even when it seemed like the whole world had fallen apart.
Yeah.
And the last thing I'll say is I never knew this. I had no idea. But my group was the best. Out of 25 subsidiaries, I was head and shoulders above everybody else. And the Americans who owned us at that time said, Char, I want you to come and teach all the other subsidiaries what is your secret. And this was an American company that they believe that, you got to follow the book, you got to be the process driven. And somehow my people who couldn't speak English, didn't have a huge education, they beat hands down all the other people. So I know you can get results this way.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So tell us then, is there a right answer to the question, are people, actually, can you tell me the difference? If somebody came in and they said, I feel like my people are assets versus I feel like my people are human resources. What are the difference? How do we acknowledge that we're acting as though people are assets and not human resources?
If you think your people are assets, then you've bought into the traditional line that, gee whiz, in every mission, vision, value statement, my people are my assets, and we treat our people like the beautiful people they are, which we all know is complete bunk. If you believe your people are assets, you believe your people are depreciable. And ultimately, we all have a value that equates to zero at the end of the day if you think that they're assets. If you think your people are human resources, you have classified your business as capital resources and human resources. To me, that makes no sense. And I would say to you, anyone who believes their people are assets or are human resources are so wrong. Your people are the foundation of any business, your business. And from that point of view, your people are your equity. And I can hear just about every single business owner say, what the hell are you talking about? Because I take the risk, I put my house up, I mortgage everything, and it's my name on the door, and I do everything. So why are you saying that my people are equity? They just do what what I tell them to do. And I say, no. I can stand here today and tell you unequivocally, without your people, you would not be where you are today. And granted, they don't put their ass on the line like you do. They don't have all their finances tied up like you do. But they give you blood, sweat, and tears to get you what you want. And it's important to make that distinction. I cannot look anyone in the eye and say your people are your assets. That's poppycock. And I can't say to anyone, yeah, people are human resources, because I don't have a lot of faith in those so-called human resources people. And I'll tell you why. Because they're just about compliance, and compliance does not help a business grow. Creativity and innovation and using things in a different way is what makes a business grow. So I'll say, with all due respect, people are your equity. And I'll argue that till the cows come home.
I have goosebumps. That's absolutely fundamentally what I believe. That is absolutely. We couldn't have prepared that, and that was so perfect.
When I was 26, I did not believe that. I promise you.
Yeah, that's it. How do you mentioned a little bit earlier, and again, this is a little bit off the topics of the questions that we had prepared together, but well, you had prepared. Thank you very much for that. But I'm wondering, like what you mentioned earlier, that people are, business owners or people that are interviewing their employees or their contractors, they're coming up and that this is actually, I'm wanting to know your experience. I'm hearing this a lot, generational kind of changes, and the millennials are wanting X, Y, and Z, and they're, and the whole alphabet. Do you find that when people are interviewing, and maybe this is sort of outside of the topics, but when people are interviewing their potential equity, that they might be doing it a little bit wrong? Like I do know that as a person who has interviewed people, I do hear a lot of times people come in and say, how much am I getting paid? What's the split? And they go straight to that money component of it. And they don't really want to hear a lot of the additional benefits of working with that practice or with that organization. So what are we doing in that area right there that we could change?
Let me give you my personal experience. It may work for people, it may not, but this worked really well. I switched the process of interviewing, and I said, I don't care how much education they have. I want a little bit of education, and I want a certain level of experience. But that's not the top thing I wanted. What I wanted was, what do they have in their personal values that mesh with the values that I've created in the culture? So my interviews were never about, tell me about this, tell me about that, what are you going to do, and blah, blah. I always thought that was garbage. Yes. My interviews were, what do you believe? Yes. What are your personal goals for your life?
Yes.
Where do you see yourself in 10 years? And if I was to hire you, why would you be the best candidate? And from those questions, I got a really good feel of what was in the person's heart. And everyone has the same level of education, and the experience may go up and down, but it should never be at the very top thing. Then the other thing that I did was, and I did this because I was strictly bored. I hated going through piles and piles of resumes. And I just hated the whole process. So I asked my immediate reports to please have what I call a group interview. And that actually helped bring in the right people, because the people that already worked there had opinions about me, had opinions about the company, and could talk about the good and the bad.
Yeah.
The person who was being interviewed felt more comfortable with what would be their peers, and they could ask more honest questions.
Yes.
Then afterwards, I would have 1 or 2 meetings with my team, and I would say, so what do you think? Who's the best? They would tell me. They would have gone off themselves and said, okay, out of the 10 that we saw, we think these are the best, or we don't know. And they would tell me what they thought would make a good addition to the team. And I will tell you, 9 times out of 10, I agreed with them.
Wow.
And 9 times out of 10, the pick that I made in hiring was based on what I felt and what the team felt.
Yeah.
So I have no idea if people use that kind of a process regularly or not, but it worked for me. And And I can share that anytime we hired anybody that way, I never had to fire anybody. Never, ever, not once. And I never had problems with people getting their knickers in a twist about something or bitching about the money. It was an honest conversation about what the boss was like, what the company was like, and what their teammates were like.
Wow. Oh my gosh, it's such a powerful interview.
Thank you.
Thank you. So let me ask you this. I absolutely fundamentally agree. I do a lot of interviews for my clients. So they'll go and they'll post an ad, or they'll go and do some recruiting. And I guess there's two things. It's in the private practice sector, I always say hire slow, fire fast.
Yep.
And then as well as that they need to be hiring someone that they've built a relationship with before the person actually comes into the practice. And
there should be no surprises, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And but if you have to post an ad and do your interviews, which a lot of people do. I mean, there's only, I think, 31,000 psychologists in the country, and only like 5,000 coming up in being ready to be trained to be psychologists. So there's not a lot, it's not a big network of people for a whole country. But I like to ask different interview questions. I always say to the people that I'm speaking to, this isn't an interview. I want to have a chat. I want to know what in the news has sparked a movement in who you are as a person. What's happening in society that's changed you as a person, or fundamentally changed what you're doing from day to day because of it. I like to ask them the same questions that I ask people in this interview. You know, like if you were to fall from a cliff, how would you fall? And there's no right answer. It tells you about who you are as a human being, though.
That's exactly it.
And they can't prepare for that kind of stuff. They can't. It's not like they can, have read the script or what the suggestions were about how to say, what is your weakness?
Exactly.
Flip that around, and all this. They can't do that because it kind of thrown them off. And I've had so many people say, that's not what I was expecting with an interview. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that over time, what has happened is everybody on both sides of the interview table has fallen into this silly little rut. Well, this is the way it's done. Yes. Well, no, it doesn't have to be that way. And I agree with you. I learned over time, and I did not get this out of a book. I experimented, and I said, I'm too lazy. I don't want to do this anymore. To use other people, because you can go farther when you invite other people into your world. Treat them with respect. Everyone is worthy of everybody was born with some kind of genius in them. Mm-hmm. Our problem as human beings is we're usually not right there to try and pull it out of them. We're blind to it. We're very into what the hell we're all about, but we're blind to what the other people have. And when I learned that they are exactly like I am, but just in a different way, that's when it got really easy.
Yeah. Tell us, we're running out of time here a little bit. I apologize for that. Can you tell us 3 things that we can do, or some key takeaways from this particular interview that people can go and do today or as soon as possible?
3 key. Number 1, always remember, people don't leave companies. People leave bosses. So if somebody walks out on you and said, I've had enough, that's a reflection on you. Not your company, it's on you or the business owner, which means you're not up to snuff, which means it's up to every people leader to be the absolute best that they can be. And one thing I say to be the best that you can be as a people person is your title for the banks, for the suppliers, for the customers, your title can be Chief Executive Officer, President, Founder, Big Poobah. I don't care what your title is. But when you're dealing with your people, your title is first among equals, which basically means the only power you have is to make that final decision after you've had the input from everyone else. That's a tough one for a lot of people to come to grips with. But every single human being has the right to be respected because every single human being has some kind of value. The second thing, forget the old way of trying to bring people in based on, oh, they got to have X number of years of experience and X number of years of education and this, that, and the other thing. I can honestly tell you, I've worked with PhDs and MBAs and whatever. The more education you have, the more terrible your leadership skills are. You don't want to, the more terrible your people and your collaborative and your respectful skills are. I don't know why this seems to happen. What you want to go after when you're hiring is to first look at the values that you want in your culture. Do you want honesty? Do you want transparency? Do you want authenticity? Do you want customer centric? Do you want friendliness? Those things are all powerful things about what your culture is. And those are the first things you want to try and find in the candidates who come walking through your door. The last thing I'm going to say, which I know is going to blow everybody away, is your job as a people person, whether you are a business owner or the most senior person in your company or you work by yourself. Your job is to help your employees, your contractors, your temps, your suppliers, and your customers reach at least 50% of their personal goals. Your job is not to manage them. Your job is not to tell them what to do. Your job is to help them reach their goals, which means you need to have a good understanding of what they want, which gets back to you have to have a solid relationship with your employees, your contractors, your temps, your suppliers, your customers, which basically means you treat them, as I started, as equal. Those are the three things I've found. There's a ton more. Those, I think, are the three main things I would encourage everybody to really focus in on.
Oh, gosh. I'm going to be tagging everyone to make sure they're watching this video.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So they have an opportunity, though, and I think this is brilliant, to work with you. They can go to your website, which I've got here, and we'll drop it in the video comments as well when we post this live. But they can go to your website and get a complimentary focus session with you to explore and talk about, but not just leadership. You cover so many other things, and I think that's important to talk about as well. Can you quickly just tell us a little bit about what you can cover in this focus session with anyone that books one with you?
I have never met a problem that could not be solved. I have never met a problem that couldn't be shrunk down to the absolute, here's the necessary things to do. Whether that problem is about sales, whether that problem is about administration, whether that problem is about getting a bigger presence or leadership or people. And my ego is big enough to say publicly, throw any problem at me. I will spend an hour with you. And in that hour, I promise you, you will come away with some really good learnings. I promise. If you decide based on that, okay, maybe this chick knows what she's talking about and I can trust her, great. If you don't, that's great too. I've helped you. And that's what I want to do is I want to help people become the best and help them make an impact in their world.
Yeah, I love that. And you've got a podcast, and I did pop this up a little bit earlier, but I do want to highlight it one more time. People First, Profits Second. We've dropped the link down here so people can watch or listen to your podcast if they would like to subscribe.
I have done 25, I think it was 25 or 26 episodes of my absolute favorite topic, which is People First, Profits Second, and profits will just go through the roof. You'll be amazed.
Yeah.
And when COVID hit, I thought, no, I have to stop the podcast and help everybody get through the COVID times. So there's only right now, there's 25 or 26, and I literally am trying to figure out which way I want to take it when I get back in, which will be very shortly. So yeah, have a go at it.
Our viewers are podcast advocates. They love podcasts. So.
Okay, perfect. Perfect. And I keep it to 20 minutes or less, so that's even better.
Oh, even better. Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh my God. Thank you so much. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you coming on and talking about this topic. It's so important. You had so much experience and wisdom to share. I'm honored that you said yes to come on board. Thank you.
Thank you, Natasha. It's been an absolute pleasure. I honestly, this is what I live for.
Oh.
So thank you. Thank you for pouring it out.
All right. We'll see everyone later. Bye.
Bye now.